Walked out and we heard fireworks, and then we saw the guy with the gun.
And I just remember this librarian saying, "Everyone get underneath the table. Everyone get under the table now."
I remember the first time I really was like, that's gunfire. Like, those are gunshots.
So when I'm hearing gunfire, bombs exploding, this is not resonating with me.
The gunfire was just so loud.
Well, he shot me 4 times and I blacked out.
So I remember saying the Our Father when I heard the gunshots coming in through the library.
One of the first couple shots that they took were at our table.
And I put my hand up to ask for help. He said, "Sure, I'll help you." And I looked up a little bit and he didn't grab my hand. And so I just laid back down and he put the shotgun right behind my ear and pulled the trigger.
You know, that first volley hit my right leg and the side of my face and my chest.
They ricocheted all underneath our table. I mean, just went for it with all the gunshots under our table.
We heard gunfire and screams outside while we were hiding.
I remember Patrick trying to administer first aid on my leg, and in doing that, he raised up a little bit, and you know, I witnessed him being shot in the head.
After they were done with our table, and I felt myself, and I was like, I think I'm okay. I think I'm all right.
And the only thing I think that I could sense was, I'm gonna die.
I'm looking at my friends. Lauren's not waking up. I'm seeing what everyone else is doing, and everyone seems like they're not moving, they're not waking up.
Good evening, I'm John Ferrugia. Welcome to Insight. In the past 20 years since the mass shooting at Columbine High School, the names and faces of those who were murdered are etched in our memories as a reminder of that horrific day. They will not be forgotten. But experts tell us that even with all we've seen since Columbine, school shootings are extremely rare. Statistically, a student is 15 times more likely to die in a bicycle accident than to be killed in a school shooting. Even so, when Columbine is included, a comprehensive survey by the Washington Post shows that about 223,000 students have been in schools where shootings have occurred, more than 6,000 students in Colorado alone. And that creates not only trauma in our communities, but fear. Since Columbine, survivors have been on a journey of recovery. Tonight, you'll hear in their own voices how the events of that day continue to ripple even now in their lives and the lives of their families. And while they continue to deal with both physical and psychological scars, theirs is a message of hope.
I'm Tawada. I was a senior when Columbine happened. I saw one of my friends die and everyone else shot around me.
My name is Heather Martin, and I was a senior in 1999. I was barricaded in the choir office. There were 60 of us in there for about 3 hours.
I'm Frank DeAngelis, former principal at Columbine High School.
My name is Makai Hall. I was in the Columbine High School library.
My name is Lance Kirkland. I was shot 5 times at Columbine High School. It was somewhere around 35 surgeries, I think. That first, year, 2 years, feels like, every other month I was having something done. Just got to the point in 2001 where, I found out that I was going to be a dad and was trying to, pay my own bills and live out on my own. And it was just too much at that time, mentally and physically, to just keep doing surgeries, so I stopped.
I don't remember freshman, I don't remember my sophomore year, I don't remember my junior year, I don't remember graduating, barely. I remember Columbine. I mean, there definitely is survivor guilt, which I felt. I still feel. It's palpable, it's real. Why didn't I put myself in front of the gun instead? Why didn't I roll my body over Lauren? Why didn't I pull Gina out with me? It was more of like punishment, essentially, because I wasn't injured. I was really angry at God, really upset. Just why was I still alive? Why didn't I get hurt? Why am I still here?
I got into this cycle where it was like it was on repeat, and all I could think about was how bad it was for me and how horrifying it was. The images of the shooting were pretty clear, and the violence of it, seeing people maimed and hurt and dead, those things, you know, kind of, it took a while for them to leave. I was very depressed, very angry. I couldn't get over the fact that I had gone through something and I felt like the world owed me something.
The first couple months were really hard because I didn't want to be alone. It's a little bit different as a physically uninjured survivor. You don't have a physical reminder that you can see, so it's all up here, and trying to deal with that and cope with that is, I think, different. We talked about dying. We talked about the things that we wouldn't be able to do because we were going to die. And people were like, oh, what was that like? I would just be like, well, imagine what kind of psychological damage it would be if you're sitting in a place for 3 hours knowing that you're going to die and just waiting. And they kind of like, oh, like, yeah, you probably can't imagine it, but I can. My younger sister was a freshman and she got out right away, and we wouldn't leave each other's side. I mean, here I am, I'm like, hi, Ashley, I have to go to the bank. That means we're going to the bank, you know? I'm like, I have to go get gas. And we'd have to go get gas together.
I actually went to 2 different therapists, and it just felt like a waste of time, you know, like it was a joke.
You're a young person, you went through a terrible trauma, these counselors are available for you, you should go talk to someone, you should go seek someone out. I think I just wasn't in that place.
One thing I didn't remember until much later was that the fire alarm was going off the whole time. It was actually about 6 months later when I was in college, and they did a fire drill and the fire alarm went off, and I just started crying in the middle of the class. And that's the first time that I can really remember being completely blindsided by a trigger. The sound of sirens would make me anxious and nervous, and the sound of helicopters would freak me out.
I mean, every now and then, if I hear gunfire, you know, far away, or something that sounds like it and it's out of place, I get nervous.
There was a function that was just for the Columbine students, and it was at a movie theater, and the fire alarm went off. And I remember running out of there as fast as I could. And my friends followed me, and they were like, what's going on? I was like, it's just like in the library. It's just the same noise that I heard when I was in there. And so everything just came to a halt, and I could hear just the alarm blaring and just glass shattering again and the shots going around me.
I love to hunt, and so it was important to me to not be afraid. So as soon as I could, I went and, you know, shot my shotgun just to, I knew that I could do it, but I had to confirm it as fast as possible.
I eventually dropped out of college. I developed an eating disorder to try to sort of gain that control back. I started using drugs. I'm lucky that they weren't addictive.
So, for the most part of the last 20 years, I felt mentally fine, physically fine, until about 2015. I got really stressed out, and I think the stress and the pressure kind of broke me, and finally, you know, I was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, and, you know, was drinking a lot to try and help myself, you know, self-medicate.
I did go into therapy for about a month and a half. It really helped me just because they gave me permission to feel traumatized.
I think for a long time I tried to play that off like it wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't speak about it much, but it, you know, it had a big effect. I was young, I was a boy, and so that made a big impression. It created a lot of fear, which I kind of had to work through.
So many of these kids told their parents, I don't need help, I'm fine, I'm fine. And originally there were not some issues, but 10 years out, 15 years out, 20 years out, they're struggling.
Physically uninjured survivors feel like they don't have the right because they didn't lose a loved one or they weren't shot.
I did not ever go to counseling. So I really do believe that everyone would benefit from some sort of counseling. Have I actually taken my advice? No, I have not.
I always kind of looked at, you know, PTSD as someone with like a weak mind. You know, for other people that were involved in Columbine that weren't shot, that some of them weren't even there. For them to say that they had it, I just kind of called BS. But now seeing it in myself, I'm more sympathetic. I understand that you know, it can happen to anybody and it can be there and you never really even notice it.
I feel like it set me back 5 to 10 years, you know, in like how a typical young man would develop.
Because I never, you know, noticed it. And I figured that if you do have something like that, the symptoms are going to be immediate. You know, it's going to be right after the event. So I thought that since it had been, you know, over 10 years, that it didn't affect me.
I actually started speaking out in different church groups. I think for me, it helped for my own healing, and it also helped them see what I had gone through.
I've been in treatment and continue to go to therapy to try and put the pieces back together as far as how to deal with the stress.
Anytime there's another school shooting, my phone starts exploding with, you're in my thoughts and prayers. If you need anything, I know immediately there was another school shooting. Parkland took me back to Columbine because of the images, you know, with the kids running with their hands on their head.
Anytime a shooting has happened, that hits me right back. It hits me right back with everything that happened in Columbine. I can fully understand and feel what that person is feeling like crouching down under the table or behind a movie theater seat.
What ends up happening is I have these skills now. Something I learned from my counselor is something known as touchstones, and I have 2 medals around my neck that as soon as this started happening, my heart started racing. I just grabbed them saying, this is not April 20th, 1999, this is February 14th, 2018.
I think the last time that I had a really bad episode like that was after Sandy Hook. You know, those thoughts all come back, like why do these things still happen, and you know, what causes them? Like we have to fix this.
That wound is going to always be a little open. I mean, it's going to always bother me that my son got shot. My name is Mike Kirkland. My son Lance Kirkland was shot at Columbine. He's my hero in so many ways, you know. I mean, I watched him when they told me he'd be in ICU for 120 days. And then they came back and told me he'd been shot in the face with a shotgun. When you have shot a shotgun, you know what that kind of damage. I didn't think he'd ever make it. At the time I was a raging alcoholic, and so I was trying not to drink, but I was trying to get through it, and I'm sure I would have done it differently, but I got through it all. I felt like I was doing the best I could. I think I was too busy with taking care of Lance and everything for a while. After Lance was healthy and moved out, then definitely I think my alcoholism got worse. I had every reason in the world to drink. I had my other 16-year-old son 5.5 months before Columbine commit suicide. Just felt like everything that could have gone wrong in my life did. All of this stuff hurts, so you want to get away from it. There isn't walking away from it. You can't do that. But you move on. You know, you got to keep going and life will get better.
What I'm seeing now, just within the past year, former students are calling me and saying, Mr. D, I need some advice. My kids now are 7 and 8 years old, and they're hearing about Columbine, and they want to know, Mommy, Daddy, where were you when Columbine happened?
Girls, where are you?
I have 3 kiddos.
Oh, to get jelly on them?
Grace, Miley, and Clara. And I'm married. That's important. I felt like I have gotten out of that cycle of putting things on repeat in my brain, and now I've got this family that I put my energy into. It's been probably the best thing I've ever done.
Hot, please.
You know, I stated it plainly. I said when I was a boy at my school, somebody shot me, and they were very angry. It's a very unusual thing to happen, although it does happen more and more. They seem to receive that in a positive way. You guys ready?
Okay.
I don't want to transmit my fear onto them. I wish they could live like I did before Columbine, where, yeah, school is a safe place to go, and there's no need to have a crippling fear about going out and living your life.
I feel like some of the ripple effects with our family in particular is just this consistent fear with not having your family right with you. My name is Connie Sanders, and my dad was the teacher killed at Columbine. I often will have a moment where I think that something might be happening, and I start just rapid texting about where are you okay, what are you doing? When that's not a typical response. But once you lose somebody unexpected to a tragedy like Columbine, you forget that that's not something normal, that we were just normal people at one point, and our idea of normal was changed. My dad saved hundreds of kids. He was outside and he saw what was happening and ran into the cafeteria and jumped up on the tables and told everybody to get down and move out. And then he ran up the stairs towards the library, I'm guessing to try to tell more kids to run and hide, and he was shot right outside of the library. It wasn't until about 7 years after I was driving on the highway, and all of a sudden I just felt this, I can't even describe it, like this intense sadness, anger. It was like this explosion, and I still don't know what happened. And I pulled over on the side of C-470 and got out of my car and sat in the ditch. I broke. I drove home and I just sat in the driveway. It was like I felt everything over 7 years in one moment. It wasn't until 7 years after that I needed therapy. I didn't think I needed it because I didn't feel anything. That was the problem. When we experience a significant trauma, it breaks us, and suddenly we don't really feel anything.
My name is Valerie Sanders. Dave Sanders was my grandfather.
He was more of a father figure to me.
My name is Valerie Sanders. I lost my grandfather. I lost a big piece of everybody around me. They will say, well, it's been, how many years, just let it go. Or, how did this affect you? You were just a baby.
When the Columbine shooting happened, I was 7 years old.
Nobody understands the long-term effect of growing up around it.
I felt disconnected from the girls for a good portion of their childhood because I was so distracted by this horrific thing that happened to our family at Columbine.
I grew up having to go to therapy. I grew up terrified of alarms at schools. I just grew up expecting to lose the people I love.
Knowing that he wasn't going to come back was hard. But I didn't always show how I felt because I wanted to be there for my family.
She loved Grandpa. At one point, she was really struggling herself, and in her closet, we found a shrine to Grandpa. She had been struggling for years and didn't say anything, and I realized it's because she was trying to be strong. Doesn't bother Mom, why should it bother me? She didn't know that I was in therapy. She didn't know how my heart was broken because I was trying to be strong for my kids. And I can tell you the one thing that parents can do, be weak. Be weak in front of your kids. Let them know that it's okay to break, that it's okay to need therapy, that it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to seek support, because if you don't, they don't.
So I definitely did become a nurse because of Columbine. More specifically because when I saw Gina, who was my very good friend at the time, injured, and I remember just breaking down at the hospital when we visited her. I was just watching these nurses and the medical team like going in there and taking care of her, and I was like, I want to be someone who takes care of someone else when they can't do it themselves.
There are 21 patients currently. I remember visiting the hospital a lot, and I remember admiring the healthcare personnel and providers, and always thought that that was something that I could possibly do. There's the part that I feel I'm able to comfort somebody, but I also have been able to be comforted by being able to serve in that capacity. I think I can listen to what your story is.
I am co-owner of a private practice, a mental health practice. We are forensic therapists working with people involved in the criminal justice system and trying to reintegrate back into society. I was going to be a business major until I took an abnormal psychology class. In that class, I started thinking about the two boys that murdered Dad, and I thought, I wonder what happened to them. How did they get to that point? Found out the two boys were on diversion in Jefferson County, for breaking into a van. And they actually had to receive treatment. And I'm now that treatment provider that provides treatment for that diversion program.
There was an invitation from Mr. D inviting the class of '99 back into the school for the 10-year anniversary. And I decided to go. And I was really surprised that instead of feeling scared in that space and in that school and having flashes of that day, it was definitely overshadowed by my happy memories that I had from high school. I really remembered the good things and just how Columbine was my home. I went back to school and I got my teaching license and my English degree. You guys will probably have 4 or 5 paragraphs to put together. Now I'm a teacher. I teach seniors in Aurora.
And then read through the story one time together with the pictures.
It's the greatest job in the world. My kids will ask me, they're like, what will you do if it happens here? And I'm like, well, I have a plan. I have a backup plan. I've got a backup plan for my backup plan. Right. Like, I've got this worked out, and I just don't want them to worry. I don't want them to feel unsafe.
If you find yourself after an experience like this in a bad place, it's not hopeless. There's a way to kind of come back to the light.
Noticing my symptoms and being able to deal with them, that gives me hope and, you know, for a brighter future.
It's okay that I'm changed, and it's okay that I'm not the same person that I was before the shooting, because none of us are ever going to be that person again.
There's a reason why I survived. Because I survived, I'm a stronger person. Because I survived, my daughter is here, my son is here, I'm married, I have people around me that love me, I'm God-fearing. Because I survived, I have something to do in this world.
For people that are new to this journey, I want them to know you can survive.
The things that we're given are all miracles. This day is a miracle. Each breath I have now is a miracle.
We have made it through, and it's been ugly at times, but I think the number one thing that people need to know is you'll get through.